Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Islam has been dominating the headlines in the United Kingdom over the last few months. Of particular debate and interest has been the subject of Muslim women wearing the veil, the hijab or the niqab. And the comments have raised a lot of feeling within viewers, within people living in the United Kingdom over this issue. A few weeks ago, the Archbishop of York commented in a leading newspaper that when it comes to Muslim women, they are a minority and they have no right to impose their beliefs in the rest of society by wearing the veil. With me are some friends who are Muslim women, and I'm going to be discussing these and some other issues with them to see if we can get an understanding of what lies behind some of the issues concerning women wearing the veil. I have with me Mrs. Shamaila Nagi, Mrs. Amina Sai, Mrs. Michelle Rahman, Mrs. Safia Salam, and Mrs. Qudsiya Ward. Can I begin by asking all of you, in the media it's been said a lot that there's a lot of Islamophobia around, and I wonder if any of you have had any personal experiences of this or any comments to make on this.
I can't say that I've had any extreme negative experience, but there's definitely an air of apprehension where I'm in a group of people or I'm with people who don't know me or a new situation. I do feel some apprehension coming from them and a sort of feeling that they're a little bit unsure of who I am because I cover my head, and they don't know how to speak to me or how to treat me differently. But this is very easily dispelled by just a big smile and talking to them, and they seem to come out of it rather quickly. But I do notice this apprehension in the air in most new situations.
So there's something about you looking a little different. What about you, Michelle? Have you?
I certainly haven't noticed any apprehension at all, really. I mean, I don't know whether that's much about just the way I am as an individual. I spend most of my time smiling. I don't know whether I'd notice apprehension if it was really staring at me, so it hasn't been my experience.
And Shimon?
Yeah, I think I feel the same. There is a slight apprehension that they are not sure how to approach me. They would like to approach me, but they are not sure about it, how to, and they don't want to make a mistake or do something wrong. But the very moment, just as Sophia said, the very moment you have eye contact with them, a friendly eye contact, or you smile at them, it's all gone in a second, and they are very open and really really next to nothing. I had the experience of really negative approaches. No, I can't say that.
Is that true for you, Amin?
Yes, that's exactly the same, because they don't know us, and when they give them smile or salam or good morning or good evening, they all become very friendly, and they talk and they, say salam and good wishes, and
they seem relieved.
Yes.
I do notice they seem relieved.
Yes,
and they're quite happy to then chat, and they're not intrusive, but they're happy
we are
for you to
living
talk to
in
them.
an atmosphere, haven't we? I mean, it's not so long ago that London was hit by this major terrorist alert, and there were a lot of associations being made by that, or between that and with terrorism and with Islam, and the two were kind of put together. And I mean, I've noticed a little bit sometimes on trains, because I do use the underground quite a bit, that people, as you say, are kind of looking at you and wondering, and then after that, when you appear fairly normal, they're okay about that.
I do think you get a few other experiences of it, because I think I have had this feeling of apprehension, which you've all expressed, but I also think you've got people who will go out of their way to smile at you and speak to you because you're wearing the veil. They want to show that they are not among those who have any anxieties or fears or prejudices. So it works both ways, I think.
I mean, that's something I wanted to ask you all, really, because a lot of the debate has centred around Muslim women wearing the veil, wearing the hijab, wearing the niqab, and I wanted to ask you, you've all come from very different backgrounds, what your own personal experiences about that have been. I mean, Safia, you grew up as an Ahmadi.
I did grow up as an Ahmadi. My mother always wore a full, growing up, she wore a full coat and a niqab, and at one point she did cover her face as well. So I grew up with that, but it was very difficult in America because there wasn't anyone else who was doing it, and in fact there weren't many Muslim families around us either. So as a child we did notice that people sort of stared openly. In America, they stare openly. It's very different here in the UK. So we did notice that, but again, my mother was a very friendly person and talked to people very openly and dispelled that.
Can I ask, did your mother wear black?
No, she wore
all
cream.
colours,
She
so it
wore
all-
cream
yes,
mostly.
yeah.
Mostly white, mostly cream. Yeah, occasionally black, but not often. And that's a very good point, actually, because I think there's a difference.
And people
that.
have associated Muslims with wearing black, and of
Yes.
course that's not the colour of, I mean, there's no compulsion to wear black.
That's right.
I mean, what I would say, as somebody who comes from Jamaican parentage, is particularly Jamaican young ladies of my generation, we grew up watching our parents wearing quite bold, bright colours, and we often have chosen black as choice. So, yes, my choice would often be black, but most of my clothes are black. So I think it then becomes a matter of choice.
What about wearing the veil itself, though? How have you experienced that? Have you had any comments made about the fact that you wear hijab, niqab or a veil? I mean, have people made any comments directly to you
In the
about
beginning or during?
Just now, at
Just
the
now.
moment, as you are.
Oh yeah, they ask you. They are interested. They want to understand it. People are interested in why are you wearing it, and they would like to understand it. Of course, there are some that just say, well, that's just not. I'm not interested in that. But a lot of people are interested, and they ask questions. It gives you permanently the opportunity to tell people about, not only about the veil, but about our religion as well. And they are very positive about it, because they would like to hear positive things about Islam as well, because they are aware that not everything that they are hearing in the media is true and is the real picture of Islam. They are aware of it, and they are quite happy to hear the real story about it and the real facts about Islam.
Has that been your experience as well?
My experience is different. Being Turkish, it is not allowed hijab in Turkey in offices, government offices.
That's right.
When I was working, unfortunately, I was not wearing hijab. I was not covering my head. But after work, I used to cover on the way to home or from home to work. So it was a little bit duality, but I was supposed to do like that. So after that, they understand, and their reaction was slowly fade away.
But Turkey, I mean, is quite unique in its
Yes.
history and politics. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that, because just a little, I mean, Kemal Ataturk was particularly concerned not
Yes,
to...
Kemal Ataturk was a great man. He was against the Molvis. So his concern was the black ideas, very rigid ideas.
Yeah.
So that's why he got rid of that kind of people. And now I hope the system is changing, and it is getting much better now.
Right. What about the rest of you? How have you experienced...
I've actually felt that people try to ignore it. They try to pretend that, it just doesn't exist, or I don't know if they're pretending, but it just completely doesn't. I have not had one single person ever ask me why I wear it. They just seem to completely ignore that it's even there. And that, I kind of sort of like that, because it makes me go out of my way to try and bring up the topic and sort of, maybe not the head covering, but Islam in certain ways. So if I'm in a group and we're all talking and they're, just absolutely ignoring the fact that I obviously have a religion or have certain views that might be different, and they're not questioning it, I will often bring up, well, this is what we do in Islam, or this is what I do, or that's why I wear my scarf. If they're discussing some problem or some issue that they have that I don't experience because I'm Muslim or wear the scarf, I will always bring it up, and then they might come in and ask a couple questions, but
Is that a
I
very
do find
British
them.
phenomenon, though?
I
Because-
think it's very
I mean, would you
British.
get that in America?
I don't think so. I've been here for some time now, so I think it would be different. I think either you would have outright, why are you wearing that, or why do you have to wear that, you don't have to, or questions. I think it would be different.
And in Germany?
Yeah, I think it is German and British are a bit similar in that sense. You have those people who are ignoring you completely and say, okay, that's up to you, it's your decision, do what you want. And then there are those people who are interested in it and really would like to know. But I think especially as the situation has changed and Islam has become a focus point now in every news and in every newspaper all the time, people really want to know what is behind it. It makes it much easier. It actually gives us lots of opportunities to really get across the real picture of Islam and the real beautiful picture of Islam and put this ugly picture that is presented sometimes really into a right light.
I guess what you're also saying, thinking of your point particularly, Safia, is that there is a curiosity there. There's a natural reserve about some people actually not wanting to perhaps make you embarrassed because they ask you, why do you wear that, you know? But there's a curiosity and people are wanting to know more and people are wanting to find out. But what we're getting from the media is this sense that somehow Muslim women kind of make us feel really scared, make us kind of separate themselves from us, that we feel uncomfortable. I mean, I've been reading a lot of comments that have been made about, in the media, in articles in response to comments on television, that actually when we see a woman in a veil we feel different. We feel she's different, rather, that we don't feel able to talk to her.
I think that is...
Sorry.
Go on.
And they don't really know enough of the truth about why women wear the veil and what the veil means to them. And they see a woman wearing the veil as being a woman who is repressed and controlled, and they don't really know that most women who wear the veil wear it out of their own choice. And the other thing is that they're just general lack of knowledge. And I think if we have a duty to try and alleviate that, really, we can.
I think so, because I think it affects the young Muslim girls as well. I think the young Muslim girls find it difficult starting to wear a veil because of this outside thinking about Islam and this pressure about Islam, and they don't want people to look at them and think, oh, you know, where are you coming from? And I think it's important to work on this and change all of this and make it easier for our girls who are coming up to the time of starting to wear it.
Well, I want to come back to that point in a little while. You mentioned about your parents being Jamaican. I mean, what about the West Indian community? Do they see you as kind of a little bit
They would
odd,
often link that with oppression, the headscarf with oppression, as you have mentioned. And the duty for me is to explain the reason why. And when the understanding is there, then the myth is dispelled. So, but often the first thinking is about oppression.
It is, yeah. I
They
think
think about it.
yeah.
Yes,
It is about oppression, and my parents are very positive in all respects in my conversion to Islam, but they had their difficulties with the veil, that's for sure, and they still have it slightly, the difficulties with the veil. But they appear to think that women are only doing it to, especially if they are converts, to fit in, to have it easier to fit in the family, to fit in the society they are now living with, and they find it then quite difficult to, for some reason, quite difficult to believe that we are really standing for it and really believing in it and are really doing it because we want to do it. And it takes a long, long, long time really to convince them through how we are behaving and how we are practicing our religion, to convince them that we are really want to do it. It's so fixed in their minds that it is impossible that a woman wants to do that.
Well, there can't be anyone possibly
Yeah,
that we would do it for besides Allah.
Yeah.
So
It's not understanding the philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
This is only one tiny little piece of a whole philosophy of the responsibilities of women and the attitudes of women, the treatment of women in the whole of society. And the wearing of the veil is a tiny little bit of that, but it's a very visual part, so that's why it gets this response.
I mean, I wanted to ask you a bit more about that. I mean, here you are all very positive about wearing the veil, and we're all sitting here discussing this subject. Amidst a lot of, as I said earlier, a lot of confusion, perhaps a lot of suspicion, a lot of concern from the people amongst which we live. How do you tell them why you wear the veil? What do you say to them? I mean, when that conversation actually does finally come up, what reasons do you give for wearing it?
well,
My reason is always about my choice and my wish to follow the prescriptions of religion, and that is important to me. But when I think back on my journey to wearing the veil, I would say that the thing that I found hardest was my parents understanding that it was because I wanted to do it, the choice. That was really quite difficult, but certainly the first thing for me is that, yes, it's part of my faith. Secondly, it's my announcement that I am a Muslim, and I'm not going to go to the places that people may want to invite me to if I didn't have my headscarf on. So those are the reasons why, and I tend to explain, really that's my reason.
But when they say to you, you know, so you're Muslim, but so why do you have to do this? Why do you have to look so different? What do you say? Safia, what do you say to them then?
Well, first I'll explain a very, very basic about what the Quran says, and explaining about covering our beauty and covering ourselves, and that we all do it in different ways according to what we feel is right and the way that we're taught. But I also add to it, I tend to say that I do it for my children. I want my children to be very comfortable with being around it, having their mother wear it, understanding it. I mean, one day, inshallah, my sons will grow up and they'll marry girls who will, inshallah, wear it as well. And I want them to fully understand it and to be comfortable around it and to support them and to you know, be able to back it up with their own experience and their knowledge. So besides the reason why, which everyone knows, the religious reasons, I always use because of my children as a big reason, and people seem to understand that. They accept that as being something that they can feel, other mothers can feel that, and that leads on to how will you raise them this way, what will you do when this happens or that happens, and it always leads to a very positive conversation.
So from that you can then actually think about child rearing, the effect that it's having on children. And this was a point you were making to me earlier, Shmaila, about that quite often women will say, I want to wear it, and they kind of stop there. Yes, they're very happy wearing it, but they don't go on to give the fuller explanation. What would you say in response to that?
Time, but obviously in a very short time on the street you can't go much beyond what you just said. But if there is the opportunity to talk a little bit longer about it, but I always try to make them understand that yes, it is about me, and it is about me being comfortable in following what God Almighty, that I have accepted as Almighty and all-knowing, has prescribed for me as the best for me. But on the other hand, it's also standing for me as a Muslim. Not only I'm a Muslim and wearing a veil and doing the parda, the so-called parda system, I also stand for other values, for being a good person, for being an honest person, that everybody is safe from me, that I don't harm anybody. There are so many things that Islam is demanding from me in my lifestyle to achieve my final goal, to please my Lord, and to be a so-called good person. And I want people to understand that my veil is standing for those things as well. It's not standing only for separation. Yes. I don't want to go to parties. Yeah. That is one side of it. But it is standing far more, because the party issue comes up just occasionally. But being a good person, abiding to the land, to the law of the land, being a good citizen, being a good neighbor, being a good mother, being a good employee or employer, there are all those things that are related to my religion. I'm standing for them as well, and my veil stands for that as well, and tells or should tell people, that's me, that's what I'm standing for. You have nothing you have to be afraid of. I will not harm you. I will be in favor of you. And it should make people comfortable instead of being afraid.
I can add completely, I agree with your ideas. I can say something that I'm giving message to the society that you can't, I'm not for you, just open for everybody. I'm Muslim, I'm protecting myself. You know, you are not my test, or I'm not your test. Yeah. That is the simple.
But you're also declaring to other people, aren't you? I mean, I think that when I'm wearing a veil, I'm not only saying to other people that don't flirt with me, I'm also saying I'm not going to flirt with you. Yes, so to all my friends and my girlfriends, they know that their husbands are safe from a Muslim woman, because she should, you know, I'm going to behave appropriately.
I think the message...
So behave yourself.
I think the message that you give is dependent on who you're talking to, who you're around. I mean, my Caribbean roots are around the fun of life and having parties. So that message, for me, has to be at the forefront. So it does depend on your circumstance. And of course, in the workplace again, the message is about the education and that constant education. And particularly where I work, where we have a whole range of diversity, really, and there are many Muslim children and their families that attend. It's quite...
You work with children?
I work with children, and it's great for mothers particularly to come in and see somebody else, you know, working, who is wearing her headscarf. That really is quite reassuring, I find.
There's a sense of confidence as well.
Absolutely.
That I'm doing this and there are other people and we're not alone in this. A lot of people who are like us. I mean, it kind of moves me to another question I particularly wanted to ask those of you who've converted to Islam. And something about really your journey in that conversion. I wonder, did you start off by wearing the scarf, or was that something that happened gradually? And what did your families make of that? You converted in Germany.
I converted 25 years ago, and it was a gradual journey. It was not totally abrupt. There was an abrupt change in my life, that was there, yes, but not to the full extent of wearing the veil. That came over the time by meeting people, having conversations with people who are wearing the veil, and by valuing and seeing the development of my own Western society, where they were traveling, what was their journey and their moral state as well. And maybe not that much 25 years ago when I decided to wear the veil, but the further the journey progressed in the Western society, you could see it more and more, that the negative results of not wearing the veil, they become so obvious. Now, if we read the newspapers nowadays, yes, we are with Islam all time in the news, but if you go to the next page, you have the news for all the illnesses in the society that develop so rapidly and spiral out of control that everybody is crying for a solution, but they have the solution in front, but they don't want to use it.
So you started, because I think you were born in what was
East Germany.
East Germany.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a very different society after the breakup of the division between East and West. So you started gradually.
I started gradually. Yeah.
So, and I think Michelle, you were saying the same, that you started gradually as well.
Yes, I started gradually, and the reason for my starting gradually was because my grandparents are staunch Pentecostal Christians, and for them it was an absolute outcry that one of their grandchildren is a Muslim, and it was very hard for me to face them. Then one of the things I used to do was just to slip my scarf back a wee bit if I got, when I got to the front door, and it took confidence to keep the scarf on my head. And the first time I kept it on was because I'd purely forgotten, and then I realised it actually wasn't that bad.
And what about you? Because you've come.
Well, it's been 35 years ago, so that's taking me back a bit while, and I think I also started gradually in the style. I think I used to wear an ordinary head square and tied under my chin, which a lot of English women used to wear at that time, and that may have modified over the years, but I think I didn't find it too difficult. I was in the north of England, and I think more women did cover their heads in those days than do now.
But what was the reasons for you all kind of moving up? What I mean, you could have stopped there. You wore your headscarf. I mean, you'd converted. You just converted. What was the reason for actually increasing the amount to which you covered?
I think it's faith, really. I think it's the confidence that builds when you are deep in faith. And I think what I've noticed is that the covering gets heavier as the faith grows. And there are times when you're struggling, but then you get your faith. And your headscarf, gets tighter.
I think an advantage that we as converts are having to those who are born in a religion, we struggled to get there. We questioned everything. We were on search and we looked for the answers. And then when we found the answers, then we made our decision. And this struggle became a part of our life. We are still searching, we are still looking, but on our way, just as Michelle just mentioned, when your faith grows, you have a living relationship with your God. And God ensures you, and He rewards you. And everything you are doing on the way towards Him, He grants you assurance, and He grants you His love that you can clearly feel and see. Somebody who is in faith can see it. And that gives you so much strength that over the time it doesn't really matter anymore what people say. As long as you are having the peace in your heart and you feel and you know you are on the right way. And I think over the time then you start to get to progress. I think it's in human being embedded, in their genetics embedded, that you want to progress. Because stagnation, you even find it in the wise words of people not related to religion. Stagnation is actually that you are going backwards. Nobody wants that, everybody wants to progress. And I think that's in practicing the veil as well.
And that's the point exactly that Michelle was making. And I think what you both raised is another level, which is we've talked about the practical aspects of wearing the veil, about the fact that it's a statement of being a Muslim. It's a way of getting people to think about Islam and ask questions, if they're going to ask questions. But also about the relationship between the wearer and God. And the term that comes to my mind is taqwa, which I think of as fear of God for love of God. That actually there is another reason, a really important reason about what wearing the veil does and how it...
Yeah, I remember in the very, very early stages, the first time I went to Pakistan, and there was our annual convention there, and we had a lot of converts from all over the world there together as well, and we lived in the guest house for them. And there was one black lady, she was from America, and she was already so strong in her faith and in her burqa, and I was just in my, okay, get the buttons closed on your coat. And she just said, well, I had one day a conversation with my mother, and she said, oh, I love you so much and I accept everything, but please take off the veil. And she said, Mom, I love you too very, very much, and I would do anything for you, but don't ask me to take off the veil. And she was so strong in it, and you could feel how much she loved her mother, and she would really have done anything for her mother. But her love to God was even stronger than that, because she has discovered for herself it's the right thing to do, and she didn't want to leave that.
Once you've conquered it and got over that hurdle, there's no way you're going to go backwards again. Once you've experienced being able to do it and do it successfully and face the world, wearing it and finding out how people treat you differently, you can't go backwards. And you've conquered one of the major things in all religions. They ask people to try and conquer these things, greed, these sorts of things, and vanity is a huge thing to conquer. And it's very, very difficult to get over that, and Islam has given us a way to conquer this enormous problem of vanity. And once you've done it, the satisfaction that you get from it, you'll never go backwards, no matter who asks you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying about the hurdle, and I was thinking, sometimes living in Western society reminds me of, have you ever gone up those slip roads that run past the dual carriageway, run alongside a dual carriageway, and all the headlights are coming towards you, and you're going up in one direction against the headlights? And you've talked about hurdles, that sometimes it's about that. It's actually, people do experience it's actually very difficult, and it's, at the end of the day, it's about your ego and about yourself and how I'm presenting myself and what people are thinking of me and what people are making of me. Did you find that there you were making a statement in Turkey, for example, that I'm going to wear, although the law of the land says, in public buildings, I'm a bank manager, I can't do it, you said you wore your scarf to work and then had to take it off because of the law. Did you have that sense that it was a battle, that it was difficult?
Yes, it was a great battle for me. And of course, I came over gradually. Gradually, and they accepted me, and they accepted me because they knew me, what kind of person I am, and slowly they accepted me afterwards, and there was no problem at all.
I think that's what you're all saying, that the battle seems harder than actually once you begin. It's actually much easier than it appears to be. And there's a question I wanted to ask you, Sophia, growing up in America. And I guess I'm wondering about the what the battle, if you like, is there, what it feels like.
Well, it was different for me because both my parents were white Americans, so I had nothing to fall back on except my name was Arabic. If someone saw me, they just assumed that I was, you know, like them. So it was very hard when I was younger. I didn't cover my head when I went to high school. You know, I went to beginning university, and people, and I deeply regret that because I think it would have been a lot easier for me. People had no idea I was Muslim. I wasn't Pakistani, I wasn't Arab, I wasn't anything that might say I'm Muslim until they heard my name and would start questioning me. And looking back on it, when I did begin to wear it, you know, I thought I really should have done this from the beginning. It would have made life so much easier, and it made life so much easier when I began wearing it, and things definitely changed how people responded to me and how I spoke and interacted with people and how I held myself, the confidence. Everything was completely different, and I think Allah gives you that extra confidence and that strength. You know, you're taking that step towards Him, which is a huge step. Imagine everything you're getting back from Him. So I definitely in hindsight now, you know, regret not doing it at a much younger age, and I think I would have had a different experience.
Well, I think what comes to my mind is thinking about younger people. Again, you know, thinking about this travelling up the side of the dual carriageway with the headlights of other people coming towards you, saying, "Oh, you know, you're not in the trendiest of clothes. You're not looking fashionable. What is that thing you've got on?" And what can we say to perhaps girls who are thinking about starting to wear?
I don't actually find that. I get really lovely responses from my female friends or ladies that say, you know, you always look very smart, you always look together, you never look, you know, like you're a mess when you're coming out, you look very graceful. You know, I've had very positive comments about the way that I look wearing a coat and a scarf, so I don't actually agree with that.
I'm sure that you get treated with more respect because you wear the veil, in general. I mean, I've never experienced anything but what I feel is greater respect because I wear it.
I mean, I accept that for young girls just about to go to university, actually it being quite difficult. But I think a lot of that is dependent on how parents, particularly how mother has been in preparing the child at a very early age, so that it's seen as something that's normal. I mean, if you're expecting your older child to start wearing a scarf just because she's going off to university, then already that's quite late. So it's the preparation really that we
and it's
spend
important
time with.
to take them out and find something they're comfortable with. Take the time, not just produce a black coat and scarf and say, you've got to wear this now. Let's go out together and find something that you're comfortable with. Let's find a coat you're happy with. You know, if I have to spend a little bit of extra money, it's worth the investment, obviously. So let's find a scarf you're happy with. Let's find something that you are comfortable, you know, and you know, if you need sort of 5 different scarves to make you happy, fine. You know, if you're happy wearing it, this is how you're going to wear it, then that's fine.
And I think it is a form of protection because really, if a young girl who is a Muslim goes to university without wearing a scarf, and then she's going to be invited to so many things, and if she's found it hard to wear the scarf, she's going to find it very much more difficult to then say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to join in those activities. And she's on a, really, I suppose, a slippery slope in our understanding.
The timing's critical though. I mean, I think the earlier one starts with introducing the scarf, the better. So that it's not a shock. It's stages. Yeah.
But I like Safia's point there, because actually the other message you're giving to your child is that okay, this is a religious requirement. Let's see how we can work with where you are to
work it into your lifestyle. And I'll trust you more when you're wearing it, which means you'll be able to join that club at university. You'll be able to do this. You'll be able to do that. And you know, because you've taken that step, I see how responsible you are. And how, you know, we're working together to do this, and that means you're going to actually be able to do a lot more than you would if you weren't wearing it.
Because one of the concerns people do have about scarves, about how it looks, is that actually, you know, we come back again a little bit to thinking about Muslim women being repressed, and that's why I picked up on your point, because actually you've introduced the notion of choice, and then you've said about starting earlier, but And thinking about one of the ways that the image has kind of been quite negative is, for example, we'll keep going back to the image of the Taliban women who were denied an education. What would you know, when people say to you, well, you know, this is the two associations they make immediately between people in full veil and this very repressive society, what would you say to them?
Well, you can only tell them, obviously, that Islam is not about oppression, that Islam is actually stating that every Muslim woman and every Muslim man has the duty to acquire knowledge and to get knowledge and get education, and that everybody has a free will and can make a choice, and that there should be no whatever kind of oppression in religion. And that's just something you can tell them, and you can tell them, well, if you are versatile for that, then can you say, look, you can look it up in the book if you don't believe me. Just take any Quran and read it up, it's in there. You can read about it. But usually they take it from you and say, yeah, well, if you say so, then it is definitely like that. And when they talk to you, they get as well the impression that you are not somebody who has absolutely no education and doesn't know what they are talking about, or are a grey mouse who is sitting like that and is afraid to open their mouths. So they get, it's how confident you get the message across, and that impression they take away from you. So it is very important that you self know why you are wearing the veil. If you self don't know it, if you only do it because your parents tell you to, or very often, I heard it because in Germany there is a vast Turkish community. They say, well, why do I wear the veil? Yeah, but Allah said it. Why did He said it? I don't know. Well, He said it. So they are only and entirely, which is not a bad intention, doing it in obedience to Allah, which is not bad, but they never questioned it. And I think it is important that you question what you are doing. Why am I doing it? Just to gain the confidence to say, to know for yourself. In the first place, obviously, but as well because we have an obligation to tell people as well. We have a treasure, and it is not only for us. It's a treasure that could benefit everyone in the world, and we shouldn't just keep it to ourselves. So we want to share it. We don't force anybody, but we want to tell people, look, here is a treasure. If you want to make use of it, most welcome. It's there for you. So we need to gain that confidence and knowledge so that we can then give people the impression as well that we are confident.
Can I end on one last point? I just wanted to ask those of you, particularly who have boys, young boys growing up, what do you say to them? Because Purdah, we're talking a lot about it from the point of view of women doing Purdah. What do you say to your young boys? Your boys are quite big now.
I try to tell them again and again that Purdah is not just for women. Purdah is, as much as it is for women, it is as much as it is for men valid. So the men are actually mentioned first in the Holy Quran, that they should cast their eyes down and should not look around. And quite some obligations are on them as well. And that's something the boys should be aware, because quite often I find in societies where they are not aware of that the boys are getting all the freedom, they can do whatever they want, and the girls are kept quite restrained, which gives a completely wrong impression again. So that's another thing that we need to tell our boys as well, and educate our boys as well, and with prayers and efforts we will have to see what is the outcome later on.
My son's 3 years old. When I put my coat on, he says, "Mummy, where's your scarf?" So it starts early.
I think a very important thing for boys is that we teach them that they have to pay respect to women.
Yes.
That is a very important point. And if you respect someone, if you pay your respect towards someone, you will treat him in a way that you don't want to hurt them in any way.
And that's for everyone, not just women.
And that is for everything.
Everyone.
For whether they are for parents, for elders, for youngers, for girls, for boys. Everybody deserves respect. But in particular because Islam is misinterpreted so badly in that respect. And unfortunately our so-called Muslim societies are not exactly a good example on that. What Islam actually really teaches. That's something we have to pay attention to if we bring up our boys, and don't take it for granted, or they will understand it themselves. I think that's something that needs to be emphasized as well, pointed out to them.
Well, ladies, thank you very much for your comments on this discussion, and I hope that we have served to discuss some of the ideas that certainly have been very topical in our society here in London with the viewers. And thank you very much for your participation. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.